So the War Within is right around the corner, and this expansion is going to bring with it a complete change in how people are going to play alts with warbands, whether it be transferring currencies, using the warband bank so you can easily transfer items between characters, or even having account-wide reputations. All of these things are going to combine to give World of Warcraft a lot more of an account feel over a specific character feel. But I think one of the biggest changes, if you're more of an endgame focused alt player, is going to be the massive changes to alt gearing, because we've also gotten some very recent new information on alt gearing and even more specifically alt catch-up. And I think the best place to start is Warbound Gear. And you may have even seen some of this gear if you've been playing the War Within pre-patch event. But Warbound Gear is gear that you'll obtain through different pieces of content in the War Within. And this gear will be able to be freely traded to any of the characters on your account and will only become bound when you equip it. So it's basically catch-up gear that you earn on one character and give to another character. Basically hand-me-down gear. Now it's actually really interesting how you're going to be obtaining a lot of this gear. So basically anytime you're doing any endgame content, there's a chance that you will just also get a piece of Warbound gear as personal loot. So if you're running LFR or any other difficulty of a raid, if you're running Mythic Plus, anything you're going to be doing, you're going to always have that chance to get a random piece of Warbound gear. And it's going to be completely random. So if you're on a warrior, you could still be getting like cloth gear. And the whole point of this gear is that you just send it to alts that you also want to gear up and give them a little bit of starting gear as you start to play them. Now, what's also interesting on top of just how you obtain this gear is that this gear is also going to be based upon what level content or what difficulty content you're taking part in. Now, we don't know exactly how this is going to land, but based off of some people's testing on the beta, it seems like that this Warbound gear you obtain will always be one upgrade track below the content you're currently doing. So if we compare this to Season 4 of Dragonflight, let's say you're doing content that gives you myth track gear, so some of the highest gear in the game. It seems that if you were to obtain a piece of Warbound gear while doing that content, it would be a hero track piece of gear, which if this testing holds true and this is how the system launches, that'll actually be pretty incredible, because that'll mean just playing your main, you'll be able to get gear that's only a bit below the content you're doing for any of the alts you may want to try. So you could potentially get like a two-handed weapon on the hero track, and now you want to go play an alt because you got such a big upgrade and such a strong starting point for a new character. Now in this testing, it also seems that you're not going to be getting actual gear drops from the content you're doing. So if you're, say, doing a raid and you get that random piece of Warbound gear, it wouldn't be a piece of gear from that raid. You wouldn't be able to get like an end boss trinket as a Warbound drop. It seems like all the Warband gear is going to be that much more generic gear. Like if you've ever used a boost, your character has a bunch of generic gear on it. Even if that gear's high eye level, it's still generic. So it seems like that's how all of the gear is going to work. So you're probably not going to be getting like some absurdly powerful trinkets as Warbound gear or anything like that. It'll be a more generic starter gear that even if it's maybe a higher item level, you may still find better gear at lower item levels just because some more specific gear may be better. This will probably be the case with trinkets most of the time. So that's kind of stage one of how warbands in the War Within is going to massively impact playing other alts and gearing other alts into the endgame to allow your alts to start in a much more geared position, especially if you're somebody that's already doing really high-end content on your main. But we recently got some more information on how this is going to be expanded upon significantly. So in a recent interview that Maximum had with Morgan Day, we actually got the initial reveal of a new system coming in the War Within.
But I was wondering if there was any plans to add some kind of like crest catch-up system for alts and or an upgrade cost reduction.
Yes, I am mostly sure we haven't announced this, but I always like to give you scoops. We are going to be adding essentially, like you mentioned, a catch-up system for Mythic Plus and giving you a discount on upgrading gear, a crest discount essentially. And the specifics aren't entirely nailed down, but essentially, when you have outgrown a crest level and we normally accompany that with like an achievement, that'll unlock across your whole warband a discount to upgrade that character. I think I want to say it's like a 30% off the top of my head.
Now, Morgan Day also said that the system isn't fully tied down yet. The numbers may change, or the exact way in which it works may be a little bit different, but going off of his explanation, it seems that when one character upgrades all of their gear or goes past a certain crest level, all of your other characters will get a reduction in how many crests it takes to upgrade going through that tier. So let's say your main is super into the end game and all of your gear is all like fully upgraded myth gear. And let's say you have an alt that is on all hero gear. Well, that alt would have a 30% reduction in all of their upgrades going forward. Now, again, we don't have all the specifics and it's not tied down, but he did also say that it'll probably be around a 30% reduction in crests you need, which is actually pretty substantial because this also means that if you have that reduction, timing like one key on an alt will give you enough crests to get an upgrade on a piece, which is pretty massive. Doing one run and getting an upgrade would feel pretty good when gearing up an alt. And also, the way Morgan Day explained this, it sounds like it's going to be tied to an achievement, which is actually something we're already getting in another way in the War Within. So in the War Within, there's going to be these achievements that when you get a character up to level 80, you will actually get an achievement that gives all of your account a 5% increase to their experience gains up to level 80, and you can actually continue to get more of these achievements. So once you get one character up to level 80, all of your account now has a 5% XP buff. But once you get two characters up to 80, all of your account has 10%. And this stacks up to a total of 25% increase for all of your characters getting up to level 80. And Morgan Day mentioned that this would also be tied to an achievement. So that's kind of what I'm getting from this, that when one of your characters gets enough upgrades in a certain track that costs a certain crest, that you would then get an achievement that gives you a 30% reduction in the crest cost for all of your alts going forward. So if you're a character that's doing the highest tier of content, you go and play your main, you do a bunch of raiding, you do a bunch of high mythic plus, and you say fully upgrade that character. Well, going off this information, it now seems that every other character on your account will pretty much just have a 30% reduction in total crests you need, no matter what upgrade track you're on, which is absolutely massive. Mixing this crest cost reduction with the new Warbound Gear, which is also upgradable, is going to completely change how we gear alts in World of Warcraft going forward. And this is something I'm personally incredibly excited for, especially going in the War Within, because a lot of the new hero talents and a lot of the changes to a lot of the specs and classes seem really interesting and things I just want to go try out. And knowing that after I progress a bunch on my main, that all of my alts are just going to have substantially faster and easier gearing is just going to make me enjoy this next expansion a lot more. So for me personally, this is one of the biggest changes in the game's history. I've been playing since vanilla, and this is something I have really always wanted. I've wanted it to be much easier to get alts at least to like a midpoint, so you can start at least doing mid-tier content. Because one of the worst parts for me of playing a new alt has always been those starting points. It's just doing content that isn't very difficult for you just because you need the gear to get into that higher content. Especially if you're more of a solo player and pugging everything, no matter how good of a player you are, people just aren't going to invite you if you're super low eye level. Even though you could do that higher tier content, just because your gear is so bad, nobody's going to invite you. But now you just get to start at a point where it's content that's much more relevant to what you want to do and much more relevant to your skill. It's going to be just a much better experience. And I'm personally very excited for these changes. But that's pretty much all I want to go over. So thanks for watching.